Hello traders at CMC Markets. Welcome to another update by RRG Research, and I'm recording this Friday the 27th of January 2023. My name is Trevor Neil and I'm presenting to you from London. Let us start by looking at global stock markets, major stock markets versus the world as we normally do, and then we're going to go down and look at some past comments we've made and trends that we've picked up on, relative trends we've picked up, particularly the Hang Seng, and last week Julius's focus on the UK market, the FTSE market, and some individual securities. So we'll be following up on existing commentary that we have made. I hope you'll find this session useful and interesting. On the relative rotation graph with the weekly sampling of the major stock indices versus the MSCI World, there is a very striking message, and that is that Hang Seng. We picked it up right in here when it was awful and people hated the Hang Seng, but now look how it's swished around here, big gaps between each of the samples, and it's gone through from the lagging quadrant through the improving quadrant and now finally into the leading quadrant and pointing in a decisively northeasterly direction. So easterly meaning gaining in relative strength versus the world and the other indices, and northerly with positive momentum. Very, very strong message indeed in here, and we're going to look at that a little bit more. But we picked it up in here when people were just saying this the 1 year underperformance, I mean deep underperformance of the Hang Seng was the dominant theme, and it was essentially off people's radar, but we picked it up very early and picked up some securities, and we'll come back to that in a moment. But in the meantime, I think we should take it off and concentrate on the message from the rest here, the rest of the world. So I'm going to take the Hang Seng off, and this allows me to readjust my screen and get the context of the rest of the world minus the strong message, individual message of the Hang Seng Index. Now we've also got a strong message here too, which is revealed when we magnify things here. Look at what's in the lagging quadrant. The Nasdaq, the Russell, the S&P, and also the Nikkei. But the US indices, except for the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which has been performing quite well, but is itself starting to weaken. So the indices, the broad indices and the tech-heavy indices are in deep trouble, and on a relative basis, not looking good. The bright spot, which was the narrowly based and heavily industrially based Dow Jones Industrial Average itself, is now pointing in a southwesterly direction, westerly weakening on a relative basis, southerly with poor momentum, and it's in the weakening segment. So that if you had any US securities in your portfolio, they would probably be in that group and away from the technology sector, and now even that is under pressure. What else do we have in here? We have the FTSE, we have the CAC, we have the DAX, and we have the stock. Europe. It's Europe in here. And so Europe is doing well. The stock's doing very well. The DAX doing very, very well. And the FTSE is doing well too. It's the only one that's pointing on a weekly basis in a northeasterly direction. So it's improving in both JDK RS ratio and JDK momentum. The others are all pointing southwesterly, but they're further to the right. Now the FTSE is very interesting indeed. It's flirting with its all-time highs. These ones have got more potential on the upside. They're below their highs. We've got Australia in here as well. So we're going to look at some of these parts in more detail and follow up on some of the shares that we've talked about, the individual shares during this session. This is a weekly chart of the Hang Seng Index, we had this down channel. We talked about this extensively. We've favored it since here. It was back in November, the end of November and the beginning of December, we featured this, and we saw this underperforming security and leading the markets down was changing and we recognized the bounce potential in it, and it has turned up very, very strongly, breaking through resistance level, breaking out of this long-term channel since the beginning of 2021 channel, breaking powerfully. That's a very strong message. Now breaking through the resistance of 22,000, and then we've got further resistance around about here from these lows, in here 3 lows, and that's close to it, but we're approaching it with a great deal of velocity. Look at the weekly MACD here, powering ahead, the gap widening between the MACD and its signal line. That is an increasing momentum message. It is flicking ahead very, very powerfully. Let's look also at the relative strength index. That is very, very strong indeed, making a new recent high, higher lows in it, lots of powerful momentum on the upside. This can go further. The resistance does intensify as we go up. We're going into this zone here from 24,000 to 31,000 up here where there is more resistance, but at the moment the velocity of the move is powerful, and so this move probably has still got legs. Now, in the Hang Seng, early on, back in early December, we picked up a number of stocks, and I'll just go through a couple of them. One which typifies what has actually happened, and the other one that still, I think, has potential, and it's heavyweight stock. So taking, for example, one of our picks back at the beginning of December was AMTA Sport, and this is where we picked it, and it was bottoming out. We had seen this overall improvement in the picture on a relative basis for the index itself. Then through our own screening method, we came up with a number of individual stocks. We had this powerful move, then the breakout came, and then we've powered away from the breakout through resistance levels. The resistance levels, notable one being 100, and then 110. Then we are now approaching the next resistance level, which is up at 130, because we've cleared these lows in here at 120. So these are sort of in tens, these, and it is moving powerfully. And the MACD here, you can see the gap is widening between the MACD and its signal line. And then if we look at the RSI, we see it's powering ahead strongly. Yes, you can say it's overbought. It is notionally overbought, but it's at this high reading because it's very, very strong, and it's punching hard into this resistance, which extends up to about 138 here. But at this moment, the speed of it and the power of it is like the index itself. It's very, very strong indeed, and it's powering ahead. Now let's move to one of the other ones that we picked up at the same time, and that's Alibaba. And here it's again the weekly chart here, and this is one, if you're not in it, that there might be just towards the beginning of it. We've got the lower highs pattern in here, and if I draw a trend line in here now, however you draw it, you know, it would be more tightly here. You could probably say that it was broken here, but then we rallied, fell back and did it again. That's why I haven't left it on there, because it's arguable where that trend line should be. But no doubt the pattern of lower highs has been broken. We've got a low, a higher low, a lower low in place, and then we're moving up very strongly indeed towards the resistance. So a break of the resistance is at 120, 2 highs in there. Also breaking the defining lower high pattern in here. This could release a lot of energy in Alibaba, a heavyweight international stock, and I think this could potentially bring in a lot of buying. The next resistance is at 170 from this low here and this high here. And so the move from here to there could actually, from 120 up to there, could be quite speedy. It's at a crucial point. It's coming up to it could pretty well towards it, and breakout could induce more buying. The MACD widening the gap here, so there's intensity here. So if you're late to the party of the Hang Seng, this is maybe something that you might look at very, very closely. The other ones have already shot, like AMTA Sport, given that the index itself has sailed away. But this is a heavyweight stock in that group, and it is in the process of making a major bottom, I think, and 120 will be the trigger for it. Now to the FTSE 100. This is an unusual index in that it's considered the UK's national index, but it really doesn't represent the UK at all. Heavily weighted into commodities, miners, very light on technology stocks, very heavy on dollar earning, so not sterling earning companies, and therefore it really goes up when the UK itself, as expressed by the broader indices like the FTSE All-Share Index, are not at all looking as happy as this one is. This is a sort of subset of the UK PLC, which is more of an international index, excluding quite a lot of UK, so the oil companies, the dollar earners and so forth. But that's what it is, and that is for many people their benchmark. This is a very long-term chart going back to 2004, a weekly chart, but just to show you that we are flirting, as I'm sure you're very well aware, with new all-time highs. We've just backed off from it. I was wondering whether it was waiting or the Chancellor was waiting for his speech, which he's about to do, to maybe be followed by a break to new highs in the FTSE, which would confirm his view that the UK economy is doing fine. Thank you very much. But anyway, what we've got here is a market which is flirting with all-time highs. There aren't too many of those stock markets around. There are a few, but not any of the other major ones. In here we've got the RRG, and let me just bring it to the end here. Here we are, and you can see here, but the JDK RS ratio and momentum are both above 100 and pointing up. So this is the northeasterly direction, which I showed you in the global RRG chart. This is the only one of the indices in that leading quadrant that are pointing in the direction of getting stronger with positive momentum. So it's looking good. On the MACD, yes, looking good too. The gap widening between the MACD and its signal line, so momentum on the upside, important if you're going to break to a new high. The RSI, a higher high. Yes, we're a little bit off at the moment, but it's still got rising lows in here. I think it's looking very good. So, you know, two things can happen when you come to a significant resistance like this. We can break or we can fail. On balance, it looks more like it's breaking. It's approaching it with energy, and so it can break up. Last week, Julius drew our attention to 3 equities in the UK, and I want to go through those again today. So Centrica, Glencore, and a stock called Harbour. So let's start with Centrica. He had drawn in this line here as a breakout line, and we have broken out and we've pushed ahead. Clearly we're in an uptrend here. Clearly the weekly MACD has broken, and the gap is widening here. It's looking good. And also here, a little bit of loss of momentum after the breakout in the RSI, but it's still looking good. But how good, I want to show you in the longer term. So let me just expand this out here, and that line there at about 92, where does that come from? So it comes from these lows, this high in here, and this follows a long downtrend. Look at this here. That's what's happening here now. This security looks like it's putting in a major bottom. Lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. Right from 2014, it's been going down. It made its low in 2020. It's been bottoming out. Lower high, lower high. I think, as Julius also thinks, we've got a higher low in place here now. This gives us reverse head and shoulders pattern. Low, lower, low, higher low. This 92 line is a neckline. We've broken it. Now if we measure from the low here, which is a 30, up to, make it the maths easier for me, 95, 30. So it's 65 on top of 90, so 150 would be roughly the minimum price objective from the head to the neckline counted up, taking us into this resistance back from 2018, this area in here. This looks to me like it's just on the beginning of a major move up, having broken and formed a completed bottom, definitely broken the pattern of lower highs, forming a typical head and shoulders major low pattern. It's quite broad. I think this can support a big move, and I think we're right at the beginning of this move here. So watch the behavior on this from now on. It could pick up velocity in towards this resistance area, which extends from 140 up to about 165 in here. Next is Glencore, again with weekly chart here, and Glencore has been in an established uptrend line for a long period of time. So this is one that is one of the leaders actually of giving that strength at dollar earner mining and commodities company, which is pushing the FTSE 100 itself up. But it's just broken recent highs here at 550, and it's pushing up the MACD here, looking pretty good, not rampant, not widening gap between the two, but looking strong. A bit of loss of momentum in here, so it's looking positive. It is already in an established uptrend. It hasn't to find resistance. You have to look back many years actually to see that, and it looks good. Not perhaps with the huge potential of Centrica, which is at the bottom and looks as though it's making a major turn. This is an established uptrend. This is joining a leg of the uptrend as it breaks to new highs. There is obviously potential, but it's losing a little bit of power. Maybe at this stage less attractive given a choice if you were had a limited amount of capital and wanted to choose the best. I'm not saying I would recommend it, but this chart is established, underway. The Centrica looks more like it's nearer the beginning. And finally, Harbour. Harbour is a market which has been trading sideways since a big collapse in 2000 and beginning of 2020. Then it's been moving sideways and had this little gentle lower highs pattern and a little a basing formation. It's lifted up from the base quite well, and it's it seems to be bottoming out at the support level at the round number of 300. Seems to be holding that quite well. The RSI has come up from 35 from below, which some people might consider a signal that this pullback is over. The MACD is still negative, but it's closing in quite sharply, so it's about to turn positive. So this is still in early stages, and this is one that looks as though it has promise. It's at the bottom end of its range. It seems to be bottoming out. It's at a big round number support. There is, of course, resistance above for it, but this isn't buying something that's already flying away like Glencore. This is one which is at potentially right at the beginning of its move. So what have we got here of those three securities. We've got Glencore well underway, a lot of power behind it. It's got a long intermediate and long-term trends which are very bullish, and it's just breaking out, and so it's getting a new bullish message from the shorter term. We've got Centrica, which after a long fall has formed a big bottom pattern, a wide bottom with this reverse head and shoulders and breaking the pattern of lower highs, and this looks on the turning point of turning from a bear market to a bull market with a strong base from that reverse head and shoulders. And then we've got Harbour, which has gone deep into its support and now seems to be holding the support, but this one is much earlier in its formation, and the key thing is that this 300 level holds 280. 275 is the actual two spike lows that you want to see hold. You want to see follow through from here. You want to see the MACD cross upward. This is very much still early stages, but it's looking very promising. So for aggressive people who don't want to buy to participate in things which are already well underway, or ones which are well off their lows and forming reverse head and shoulders, more trying to find the beginnings of moves, this might be one that meets your criteria. I'll leave it there for this week. I thank you very much for watching. We always appreciate it when you spend your time with us. We're with you again at the same time next week. It'll be Julius de Campenar next week, and we look forward to that as always. So it's goodbye from Julius and I and Relative Research, RRG Research BV, and have a great weekend, and may the trend be with you.